Have you ever been the one who did everything right but never got seen? The one who paid the bills, showed up, stayed quiet, and hoped that maybe, just maybe, someone would say, "We're proud of you"? My name is Elena Parker. I'm 32 years old, and I live in a quiet little town about an hour outside San Francisco. Every morning, I brew a single cup of espresso, check the weather, and take a short walk to my office. It's a routine I've kept for years. Simple. Predictable. Mine. To most people, I look like a quiet woman in plain cardigans, maybe someone who files papers at a dentist's office. But behind that quiet life is something else. I'm the co-founder of a biotech company called Pacific Genomics. We build solutions for people with illnesses the world hasn't figured out yet. I stay up nights reading regulatory changes, talking to investors, and solving problems that don't have easy answers. But in my family, success was never about purpose. It was about polish. It was about how good you looked when you walked into a room, how well you could charm a dinner table. And in that world, my younger sister Madison was the star. She had the grace, the charm, the laughter that filled rooms like music. And me? I was the quiet one, the helper, the background. When I was 9, I sat at the kitchen table helping my mother sort bills, while Madison twirled around the living room in her tutu. "You're my good girl," my mother would say, brushing my hair out of my eyes. But her smile would always drift back to Madison's twirls, as if I'd already had my moment. That pattern never changed. At family holidays, I was the one who peeled potatoes, checked the oven, made sure everyone had water. Madison would walk in late with a new dress, and suddenly the room would glow. "Madison, you're a vision," someone would say. Me? I passed the gravy. And I told myself it didn't matter. I wasn't doing it for praise. I was helping, because that's what family does. That's what my parents used to say when they were raising us on a tight budget. We did what we had to do. So I did what I had to do, too. I paid the bills when the power got cut. I drove them to doctor's appointments when Madison was too busy. I stayed quiet when they forgot my birthday, but made reservations for Madison's. I didn't expect applause, just maybe a little curiosity about who I was becoming. But that question never came. And so I worked. I built something. I carried a family that didn't realize it was being carried. She longed for them to see her. Not for applause, but for a question about her work. "We're proud of you," that lingered. She wanted them to know the woman who stayed up until dawn debugging data, who sent money for their bills, electricity, water, cable, month after month. But their eyes were on Madison, whose charm seemed to erase any need for responsibility. At Christmas, relatives fawned over Madison's new boyfriend, a CFO with a polished smile. "Impressive," they'd say, clinking glasses. Elena, who'd driven through snow to fix her parents' heater, got a nod. "Elena? She's doing something with science," her father said, his voice vague. The dismissal cut deep, but she smiled, her heart heavy. One rainy afternoon, Elena was in her office, reviewing a report, when Dr. Margaret Hayes knocked. Margaret, 68, was a senior advisor at Pacific Genomics, her white hair and sharp wit a quiet force. She'd seen decades of medicine and carried a warmth that eased Elena's guarded heart. "Elena," Margaret said, settling into a chair, "that regulatory fix you proposed? It's brilliant. Most folks would have quit." Elena flushed, warmth creeping into her cheeks. It was just what needed doing. Margaret's eyes softened. "Honey, it's the kind of work that saves lives. Don't let anyone tell you it's less." The words landed like a hug. Elena had carried her achievements alone, tucking them away like old postcards. But here was someone who saw her. Not just her work, but her heart. She walked home under the drizzle, stopping on her porch to sip iced tea. Margaret's words lingered, a small light in her chest. Maybe she didn't need her family's approval. Maybe her purpose was enough. But family pulls you back like a tide. Elena was the reliable one, the daughter who said yes, who fixed problems, who stayed behind the scenes. Her parents didn't thank her for the money she sent, didn't ask if her budget stretched thin. They didn't call to check on her, didn't wonder about the nights she spent keeping Pacific Genomics afloat. They just leaned on her, as if her strength was owed. She remembered a summer when she was 12, helping her mother make apple pie for a family picnic. Her mother's hands guided hers, rolling dough, her voice soft. "You're patient, Elena. That's a gift." For a moment, Elena felt close to her, like they shared something Madison couldn't touch. But at the picnic, her mother beamed as Madison danced with cousins, while Elena washed dishes alone. That memory stung now. She didn't want Madison's spotlight. She just wanted someone to say, "You matter, too." But that moment never came. It was a Wednesday in late March, the air sharp with spring. Elena sat in her living room, sunlight warming the hardwood floor. Her espresso steamed in her hand, the old answering machine blinking red with a message from her mom. Her mother's birthday was nearing, and Elena had booked a flight home. She'd arrive early, make apple pie, hang decorations, traditions she kept alive while Madison was traveling. She dialed their landline, expecting her mother's voice, maybe a request for cinnamon rolls. Her father answered, his tone clipped, his Sunday paper rustling. "Hey, Dad," Elena said, her voice warm. "I'll be there Thursday to help with Mom's party." A pause, heavy and cold. "Elena, maybe don't come this year." Her stomach twisted. "It's fine. I clear my calendar. I want to be there." His voice sharpened. "Madison's bringing her new boyfriend, Lucas. He's a CFO, very polished. Your job, it's hard to explain. You being there might make things awkward." Elena's hand tightened around her mug. The heat burned her palm. "So, you're saying I'd embarrass you?" Her father didn't soften. "If you insist on coming, don't call me your father." The line went dead. Elena sat frozen. The world outside moved on. Birds chirped, cars hummed. But inside, everything stopped. "Don't call me your father." The words weren't just a rejection. They were a wall, shutting her out of the family she'd carried. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stared at the cooling espresso, her father's voice echoing. Her heart cracked, not with anger, but with grief so deep it stole her breath. She'd spent her life trying to be the daughter they needed, reliable, selfless, invisible. And now, she wasn't even that. She set the mug down. Her hands trembled. A neighbor waved through the window, but Elena couldn't smile. She closed her eyes. The memory of that Giants game flashed, her father's laugh, his hand on her shoulder. How had they come to this? "It is what it is," she whispered, her voice breaking. But it wasn't. It hurt too much to be. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, the apartment dark except for her laptop's glow. She opened her banking app, the numbers a cold record of her duty. 2 years, $15,720. Electricity, $192.48. Water, $136.72. Cable, $248.50. Then the extras, $300 for a fridge, $500 for car repairs. She'd sent the money without question. Her mother's reply was always the same. "Thank you." No calls. No warmth. Just expectation. She hovered over the auto payments. Her heart pounded, fear and clarity colliding. "Don't call me your father," he'd said. Her hand moved. "Cancel." She paused, her breath shallow. "Cancel." One more. "Cancel." Each click was a release. She wasn't angry. She was done. She closed the laptop. Her hands were still. She stepped onto her porch, the night air cool. The stars were still there, just like always. But this time, they didn't comfort her. They just watched, silent witnesses to a truth she was starting to face. "I thought love meant silent sacrifice," she whispered to herself. But maybe it's seeing someone, even when they don't shine the brightest. The next morning, Elena called Dr. Margaret. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft. In Margaret's office, photos of grandchildren lining the walls, Elena let it spill. The call, the years of being unseen, the ache of being the daughter no one bragged about. Margaret listened, her eyes warm. "Honey," she said, "I learned too late that pleasing folks can steal your peace. You're learning it now. That's wisdom." Elena's throat tightened. Tears spilled over, hot and quiet. You've always been the strong one, Margaret added. But even the strong need rest. The words settled deep. Elena nodded, her heart a little less heavy. I just wanted them to see me, she said, her voice small. Margaret squeezed her hand. They should've. But you see you. That's enough. On her mother's birthday, Elena's phone buzzed. She checked the answering machine, its mechanical voice too personal. Her mom's message. Elena, sweetheart, the power's out. Can you check? It's an important day. The word sweetheart stung. As if she hadn't been told she'd embarrass them. As if nothing had happened. Her phone buzzed again. Her father. No water. No internet. Call the providers. Your mom's upset. Madison. The internet's down. Guests are here. Mom's in tears. What's going on? Elena stared at the messages. Her heart felt heavy, but clear. She started to type. Dad told me not to come. I'm just following orders. She stopped. They wouldn't hear her. They never had. She deleted the words. She didn't owe them an explanation. Not anymore. Elena stepped onto her porch. The April air was crisp, the sunset painting the sky orange. She sipped iced tea, her chest lighter than it had been in years. Not with triumph, but with peace. The breeze carried the scent of jasmine, and she let it fill her lungs. She wasn't invisible, not to herself. Inside, her phone buzzed. She didn't look. She didn't need to. They were panicking not because they missed her, but because she wasn't there to fix their problems. Maybe they did the best they could, with what they knew, she thought. But I needed more. And it's okay to say that. 3 days later, Elena was at her desk, reviewing staff transfers for Pacific Genomics. A name stopped her. Lucas Bennett, head of finance, transferring from New Jersey to Boston HQ. Madison's boyfriend. The man her parents had called polished, the reason she'd been uninvited. A bitter laugh escaped. She'd met Lucas once at a conference, his handshake firm, calling her co-founder Parker. Neither had connected the dots. To Madison, Elena was the science sister. To Lucas, she was a name on a business card. But now, the truth clicked. Lucas would report to her. She didn't rush to approve the transfer. She sat with it, the irony a quiet gift. Life is a way of balancing things, she thought. When Lucas arrived at the Boston office, Elena was in her glass-walled suite. His knock was crisp. She looked up. His expression faltered. Elena, he said, voice uncertain. Welcome to Pacific Genomics, she said, calm. You'll report to me. Lucas blinked, speechless. He took the contract and left, his footsteps echoing. Elena leaned back, her heart steady. The moment wasn't about power. It was about truth, standing tall without her needing to shout. That afternoon, a video call from Aunt Lorraine lit up her phone. Lorraine, 72, was the only relative who sent handwritten birthday cards, her cursive a small anchor in Elena's life. Elena answered, bracing herself. The screen showed chaos, her parents' living room, flickering with candlelight. Her mother paced, wringing her hands. Her father shouted into his landline, his coffee mug cold on the table. Elena, Lorraine said, her voice soft, your mom's in a panic. The party's a mess. No power, no water. Elena stayed silent, her face calm. Her mother's voice cut through. She's probably sulking. Who'd do this today? Her father, louder. Claire, Liam's here. Call the power company. Lucas stepped into frame, his blazer crisp. He stared at Elena's face on the screen. Wait, he said, voice low. You're Elena Parker, the co-founder of Pacific Genomics? The room froze. Her mother's jaw dropped. Her father stopped pacing. Madison's phone slipped in her hand. Elena nodded. Yes. Lucas turned, his voice shaking. She's my boss. Silence. Elena leaned forward. Hope the party goes well, she said, her voice even. She ended the call. She didn't gloat. She sat back, the silence wrapping around her like a warm shawl. The moment wasn't about victory. It was about truth. They'd seen her. Not because she'd begged, but because the world had shown them what they'd refused to see. Elena leaned against her desk. Her heart felt full, not with anger, but with strength. For years, I waited for a thank you, she thought. Now I know I didn't need it. I just needed to thank myself for surviving it all. 2 days later, her phone rang. Her mother's number. Elena hesitated, then answered. Elena, her mother said, her voice trembling. Why didn't you tell us about your work? We didn't know. Elena's chest tightened. I tried, Mom, she said softly. You never ask. A pause. We should've, her mother said, her voice breaking. Can you come home? Please. Elena closed her eyes. The girl who'd made apple pie with her mother wanted to say yes. But the woman she'd become knew better. I need time, Elena said. Maybe one day. But not now. Her mother's breath hitched. Okay, she whispered. The call ended. Elena sat on her porch, the evening air cool. She didn't feel angry. She felt free. The next week, an email arrived. A biotech journal wanted an interview. Pacific Genomics had been shortlisted for a National Innovation Award, and they wanted Elena's story, not just as a co-founder, but as a woman who'd built something against the odds. She hesitated. She'd never sought the spotlight. But Margaret's voice echoed, Don't diminish yourself. She said yes. The interview was published a month later, her photo on the cover, plain cardigan, tired eyes, a quiet strength in her gaze. The article traced her journey, the late nights, the breakthroughs, the sacrifices. It mentioned her family briefly as a challenge she'd overcome. To Elena's astonishment, it went viral. Women shared it online. This is me. I've been invisible, too. Elena read them late at night, her heart swelling. Her story had reached far, touching lives she'd never imagined. Her parents saw it, too. The answering machine blinked red. Her mother's voice. Elena, we didn't know, honey. Can we talk? Elena listened, her heart twisting. Part of her wanted to call back, to mend what was broken. But she pressed delete, not with anger, but with resolve. She sat on her couch, the room quiet except for the hum of the fridge. The weight of their expectations was gone. In its place was something fragile, but hers. Maybe they did the best they could, she thought. But I deserved more. And I'm allowed to choose myself. In the months that followed, Elena bloomed. Pacific Genomics grew, hiring new talent, securing bigger contracts. Elena led with confidence, no longer the invisible girl. She mentored young women at the company. Your value isn't what others see, she told them. It's what you build. Their nods warmed her soul. Lucas, now head of finance, worked down the hall. They never spoke of Madison. Their silence held respect. Some truths don't need words. Elena started small joys. She joined a pottery class, her hands finding peace in clay. She volunteered at a community health clinic, teaching kids about science. Their eager questions were a balm. She sent handwritten thank you cards to her team, a habit from Lorraine. Each one was a small act of gratitude, a way to say, I see you. She drove past her old high school one evening, the familiar road lined with oak trees. Memories flooded back, rushing to class, dreaming of a future she couldn't yet name. She smiled, her heart light. One October afternoon, Elena stopped at a cafe she'd passed 100 times. She ordered a chai latte and sat by the window, watching rain streak the glass. Her phone buzzed, a $10 million deal for Pacific Genomics. She marked it unread and tucked the phone away. A wooden sign read, Home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a choice. Elena opened her journal. I thought love meant giving everything, she wrote. Now I know it means giving to those who give back, even if that's just yourself. She closed the journal, the rain tapping softly. She wasn't the daughter they'd wanted, but she was the woman she'd chosen to be. 6 months later, Elena was invited to speak at a biotech conference. She almost declined, her old fears whispering. But Lorraine called, her voice warm through the landline. Elena, Lorraine said, you've grown into a woman who moves mountains. Tell your story. It's not just yours, it's theirs too. Elena took the stage, her heart steady. She spoke of sacrifice, of setting boundaries, of finding purpose beyond approval. The audience, doctors, scientists, retirees, listened, their faces reflecting her own journey. An older woman approached, her eyes bright with tears. "I was you," she said. "I gave everything to a family who never saw me. Your story gave me courage, even at 70. Elena's breath caught. Her eyes stung. She hadn't expected this. A stranger's gratitude, a ripple she hadn't planned. The surprises weren't over. A letter arrived, handwritten in Lorraine's cursive. Elena held it, her hands trembling. "Dear Elena," it began, "I've always seen you, even when others didn't. Your parents are struggling not with bills but with truth. They're starting to see what they lost. I don't know if they'll say it, but I will. I'm proud of you." Elena's tears fell, hot and quiet. It wasn't the apology she'd craved, but it was better, a love that saw her, unasked. She tucked the letter into her journal. She stepped onto her porch, the sky clear and vast. Her heart felt full, not with the weight of others, but with peace. Elena's story isn't about triumph or revenge. She spent years believing love meant never saying no. But she learned that saying no protects the parts of you that matter most. Family is sacred, but family without respect is a burden. She no longer needed their approval. But if one day they found the words to say, "I'm sorry," she would listen. Not for them, but for herself. If you've ever carried your family's weight in silence, Elena's story is yours too. It's never too late to choose yourself, not with anger, not with guilt, just with grace. Because dignity has no expiration date. Have you ever felt unseen in your own family? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice might help someone feel a little less alone today.